The keeper of memories in the heart of Tanzania's Ruaha National Park, where ancient baobab trees stand like silent guardians of time, lives Nyota, believed to be the oldest aldabre giant tortoise in all of Africa. Her name, meaning the star in Swahili, was given to her by the local Hihi people, who discovered strange star-like patterns on her shell patterns that seemed to glow under the light of a full moon. Born in 1832, during the reign of Mkwawa, the legendary chief of the Hihi people, Nyota's life spans nearly 2 centuries of African history. Her first memories are of grazing alongside herds of elephants in valleys that have long since transformed into different landscapes. She remembers the taste of fresh grass that grew abundantly before the Great Drought of 1875, and the sound of raindrops on her shell during monsoons that reshaped the land. As a young tortoise, Nyota witnessed the arrival of the first European explorers in the region. She watched from the safety of a thorny acacia grove as David Livingstone's expedition passed through the valley, their strange clothes and equipment catching the morning sun. The local people, who had long considered her a spirit of the land, would often leave offerings of fresh fruit near her favorite resting spot beneath an ancient baobab tree. The years of colonial expansion brought significant changes to Nyota's world. She lived through the German East Africa period, witnessing the construction of the first colonial buildings and roads. During this time, she developed an unlikely friendship with a German naturalist named Friedrich Weber, who studied her for 3 years and documented her extraordinary age through growth ring analysis and historical records. But it was during the tumultuous years of World War that Nyota's legend truly began to grow. As battles raged across East Africa, she became an unexpected savior to a group of lost British soldiers. Dehydrated and disoriented, they followed her slow but deliberate path to a hidden water source, saving their lives. The soldiers later documented this encounter in their war journals, referring to her as the ancient guide. The post-independence era brought new challenges and changes. As Tanzania emerged as a nation, Nyota's home became part of the newly established Ruaha National Park. The park rangers, amazed by her longevity, began keeping detailed records of her movements and habits. They discovered that she had an uncanny ability to predict weather patterns, often seeking higher ground days before unexpected floods or finding shelter before severe storms. Dr. Amina Hossein, a renowned herpetologist who has studied Nyota for the past 30 years, made a remarkable discovery in 2015. Using advanced imaging technology, she found that Nyota's shell contains a unique pattern of growth rings that not only confirmed her exceptional age but also revealed evidence of major climatic events throughout African history. Each ring told a story of droughts, of plenty, of environmental changes that shaped the continent. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Nyota's life is her role in local culture. The Hihi people believe she carries the memories of their ancestors in her ancient eyes. They say that on certain nights, when the moon is full and the air is thick with the scent of wild jasmine, Nyota makes her way to the ancient baobab tree where she was first discovered. There, they claim, she communes with the spirits of the land, sharing stories of times long past. Young children from nearby villages often visit her under the supervision of park rangers, bringing offerings of fresh mangoes and watermelon. They sit in quiet awe as park guides tell them about her incredible journey through time. Some say they can see centuries of wisdom reflected in her gentle gaze. In recent years, Nyota has become a symbol of conservation and resilience. Her presence in the park has helped researchers understand the long-term effects of climate change in East Africa. The patterns in her shell, studied by scientists from around the world, have provided valuable data about environmental changes over the past 2 centuries. As she approaches her 193rd year, Nyota moves more slowly but remains active, particularly in the cool morning hours. She has her favorite spots: a sun-warmed rock near a crystal-clear stream, a shady patch beneath a cluster of umbrella thorn trees, and of course, her beloved ancient baobab. Park rangers ensure she is protected while allowing her to roam freely within her territory. Dr. Hassan's latest research suggests that Nyota could live for another several decades, potentially becoming one of the oldest documented tortoises in history. But beyond the scientific significance, she represents something more profound, a living connection to Africa's past, a keeper of memories that span generations. Local legend tells of a prophecy that when Nyota finally returns to the earth, her spirit will join those of the ancient baobabs, continuing her watch over the land she has called home for nearly 2 centuries. Until then, she continues her slow, deliberate journey through time, carrying with her the stories of a continent, the memories of countless seasons, and the wisdom of ages. Every evening, as the sun sets over Arua National Park, casting long shadows across the savannah, Nyota can often be found near her baobab tree. In these quiet moments, with the calls of night birds beginning to fill the air, it's easy to imagine all the history those ancient eyes have witnessed, the changes, the struggles, the triumphs, and the enduring spirit of Africa itself. The park rangers who watch over her say that in recent years, she has developed a peculiar habit. Just before dawn, she often makes her way to the highest point in her territory, facing east as the sun rises over the African plains. Some say she's simply warming herself in the morning light, but others believe she's watching for something, or perhaps remembering something from long ago. As tourism to the park has increased, Nyota has become something of a celebrity, though park authorities carefully manage visits to ensure her peace isn't disturbed. Photographers and filmmakers from around the world have documented her, capturing images that show the subtle changes in her appearance over the decades. Yet she remains seemingly unaffected by the attention, continuing her unhurried exploration of her domain just as she has for nearly 2 centuries. Researchers have noted that despite her advanced age, Nyota displays remarkable cognitive abilities. She recognizes individual rangers who have cared for her over the years and shows particular interest in children who visit, often approaching them slowly and gracefully. This behavior has led to several studies on tortoise intelligence and memory, with Nyota's exceptional lifespan providing unique insights into how these remarkable creatures process and retain information over extended periods. The most recent chapter in Nyota's story began during the global pandemic, when the park fell quiet to human visitors. Rangers reported that during this time, she ventured into areas of her territory that she hadn't visited in decades, as if reclaiming ancient paths from her youth. She was observed spending long hours near historical sites, including the ruins of an old German colonial outpost and a traditional hihi ceremonial ground. As her legend continues to grow, Nyota remains a symbol of endurance, wisdom, and the deep connection between nature and human history. Her life spans the arc of modern African history, from pre-colonial times through independence and into the present day. She stands as a living reminder of the importance of conservation and the incredible stories that the natural world holds. Today, as the sun sets once again over Arua National Park, Nyota rests beneath her baobab tree, her ancient shell bearing the marks of nearly 2 centuries of life. In the growing darkness, local people say the star-like patterns on her shell begin to gleam faintly, a reminder of why she was named after the stars. And as night falls over the African savanna, one can't help but wonder about all the secrets and stories she still holds, gathered through her extraordinary journey through time. As Nyota entered her 194th year, the lands of Arua National Park experienced an extraordinary transformation. Unprecedented rains brought a super bloom to the savanna, coating the earth in a carpet of wildflowers that hadn't been seen in over a century. For the ancient tortoise, these flowers stirred memories of her youth, of similar blooms that had painted the landscape in the 1850s. The phenomenon attracted researchers from across the globe. But none were more intrigued than Dr. Maria Fernandez, a specialist in tortoise cognition. She had come to study how Nyota's behaviors might change in response to this rare ecological event. What she discovered would challenge everything scientists thought they knew about tortoise memory and intelligence. During the bloom, Nyota began making deliberate journeys to specific patches of flowers, some located miles apart. Dr. Fernandez noticed that these locations corresponded perfectly with historical records of ancient Hihi settlement sites. It was as if the Tortoise was recreating a map from memory, visiting places that had long since returned to wilderness. The local Hihi elders, led by 92-year-old Jabarim Copper, shared stories passed down through generations about Nyota's role in their history. According to their oral traditions, during a devastating drought in the 1890s, Nyota had led their ancestors to underground water sources, just as she had done for the British soldiers during World War. These springs, they claimed, were marked by specific flower patterns that only bloomed once every few decades. As the super bloom continued, something even more remarkable occurred. Young tortoises from other parts of the park began to gather near Nyota's baobab tree. Park rangers had never witnessed such behavior before. Dr. Hossan theorized that the younger tortoises were responding to some form of ancient instinct, awakened by the rare environmental conditions. One morning, after a particularly strong thunderstorm, park rangers discovered that lightning had split Nyota's ancient baobab tree. The damage revealed a hidden cavity within the massive trunk, containing artifacts from the German colonial period, scientific instruments, journals, and carefully preserved specimens. Among them was Friedrich Weber's original field notebook, containing detailed observations of Nyota from the 1890s. The discovery led to a groundbreaking collaboration between historians, scientists, and the Hihi people. Weber's notes contain detailed maps of water sources and seasonal migration routes that had been lost to time. More surprisingly, his observations of Nyota's behavior patterns matched exactly with current data, suggesting that she had maintained consistent habits for over 130 years. As news of these discoveries spread, Nyota's story captured global attention. Documentary filmmakers arrived to capture the unprecedented gathering of tortoises and the super bloom event. But what they recorded went far beyond their expectations. Using advanced thermal imaging cameras, they detected that the star-like patterns on Nyota's shell actually emitted slight temperature variations, creating complex geometric patterns that changed with the phases of the moon. Dr. Hossan and her team began studying these patterns in earnest, correlating them with historical climate data and astronomical records. They discovered that the patterns seemed to predict seasonal changes with remarkable accuracy. Some patterns matched ancient Hihi cave paintings found in nearby cliffs, suggesting that the indigenous people had been studying and recording similar observations for generations. The super bloom also brought an unexpected visitor to the park, a male Aldabra tortoise named Atlas, estimated to be around 160 years old, who had been living in a remote area of neighboring Mozambique. His arrival created excitement among conservationists, who hoped that these two ancient beings might help ensure the continuation of their genetic lineage. The interaction between Nyota and Atlas provided unprecedented insights into tortoise social behavior. They were often seen sharing basking spots and grazing together, their combined ages representing over 3.5 centuries of African history. Their presence together seemed to create a calming effect on the younger tortoises, who remained gathered nearby. During this time, Nyota began exhibiting new behaviors. She would spend hours near pools of water after rain, seemingly watching the ripples created by falling drops. Infrared cameras revealed that the temperature patterns on her shell would shift and change during these moments, creating waves of thermal energy that mimic the water's movement. Local schools developed educational programs around Nyota's story, teaching children about conservation, history, and the importance of traditional knowledge. The Hihi people worked with park authorities to develop sustainable tourism initiatives that would share their cultural heritage while protecting Nyota and her habitat. As the super bloom began to fade, researchers noticed that Nyota had created a new pattern of movement through the park. When mapped from above, her paths formed intricate geometric shapes that aligned perfectly with star constellations visible during different seasons. This discovery led to new theories about how ancient creatures like Nyota might use celestial navigation. The year of the super bloom became known as the year of revelation among park staff and researchers. It had shown them that even after nearly 2 centuries of life, Nyota still had much to teach humanity about the interconnectedness of nature, history, and knowledge. As the final flowers withered and the savanna returned to its usual golden hues, Nyota and Atlas could often be seen in the cool of the evening, their ancient forms silhouetted against the setting sun. Together, they represented not just the past, but hope for the future, living proof that with proper protection and respect, the natural world could continue to thrive and share its wisdom for generations to come. The star-like patterns on Nyota's shell continue to glow under moonlight, perhaps a little brighter now, as if energized by the year's extraordinary events. And in the growing darkness, the ancient baobab trees stood watch over these remarkable creatures, their branches reaching toward the same stars that had guided Nyota through nearly 2 centuries of African nights.